All right, let's just get right into it, because if you're a student or really a learner of any kind, you've felt this. You know that feeling? That sense that just sitting down to study, to actually focus, has become just ridiculously hard. Today, we're going to unpack the real science behind why that feeling isn't just in your head, it's completely logical.
I mean, seriously, think about it. You've got the best intentions, right? You've got the books, you've blocked out the time, but the second you sit down, it just feels like you're trying to push a giant boulder uphill. If that's you, you are so not alone. And the reason why this happens is actually pretty fascinating. So, does any of this ring a bell? Your eyes start to glaze over. You find yourself rereading the exact same sentence for the 10th time, and nothing is sinking in? Or how about that sudden wave of exhaustion that hits you just minutes into a study session? Yep, you are not imagining it.
And this, right here, this is maybe the most important thing you'll hear today. That feeling, that mental block, it is not a character flaw. It's not you being lazy, it's not a lack of discipline, it's your brain doing exactly what it's been trained to do by the world we live in.
So what's the real problem here? It's not your brain, it's the environment. We are all walking around with brains that evolved over thousands of years for one world, but we're forcing them to operate in a totally different one. And that mismatch creates all this friction every single time you try to do deep, focused work like studying.
So let's break down exactly how your brain is, well, kind of under siege. And the first, and probably the biggest factor, is something we can call the attention hijack.
Just look at this breakdown. It says it all. Our brains are built for long, deep focus, like tracking an animal for hours, where the reward was slow and took a ton of effort. But what does modern life give us? The exact opposite. A constant fire hose of notifications, something new and shiny every 2 seconds, and these instant tiny rewards. And what happens when you train your brain like that, day in and day out? Well, your brain's internal calculator starts to look at studying, which is slow, hard, and has a delayed payoff, and it decides, nope, that is a terrible deal. It literally flags it as boring and costly in terms of your energy, and it starts to put up a fight, creating that resistance to get you to do something more stimulating.
But it's not just about our attention span getting fried. It's also about our actual motivation fuel, which brings us to part 2, the dopamine drop.
Okay, so there is this huge misunderstanding about dopamine. Everyone calls it the pleasure chemical, but that's not really its main job. A better way to think about it is as your brain's motivation fuel. It's the chemical that says, hey, pay attention, this is worth putting effort into. It is literally the engine of wanting to do things.
Now here's the kicker. All those frequent, easy dopamine hits we get from scrolling or watching short videos, they don't just give you a little boost, they actually lower your baseline level of dopamine over time. So what does that mean? It means you literally have less motivation fuel in your tank to begin with, which makes tough tasks like studying feel even heavier and more impossible to start. And hey, if a hijacked attention system and a drained motivation tank weren't bad enough, there's a third heavy hitter in this fight. The non-stop modern stress cycle. The biology here is super clear. When you're chronically stressed, your body pumps out a hormone called cortisol. Now, high levels of cortisol directly mess with the parts of your brain you need for learning and making memories. It physically weakens the connections your brain is trying to build. The information just can't stick. And this right here, this leads to one of the most frustrating feelings a person can have. You put in the hours, you were at your desk, you read the chapter 3 times, but when the test comes, it's just a blank. It's gone. It's not you. Your brain's learning circuits were literally being blocked by your body's chemistry. So, what's the endgame? What happens when you combine the attention hijack, the dopamine drop, and the stress cycle all at once? Well, you get something that we're all a little too familiar with. Burnout. This is such a critical shift in how we see this problem. That feeling of avoidance, that powerful urge to do absolutely anything else but study, maybe it's not a failure of your willpower. Maybe it's actually your brain's emergency brake system. It's a protective mechanism screaming, hey, I am completely overloaded and we are heading for a cliff. And you know what? This completely reframes procrastination. Instead of seeing it as this moral failing that you need to beat into submission, we can start seeing it for what it often is, a symptom. It's a signal. A sign that your whole system is under too much stress and your resources are totally drained. It's not a call for more pressure, it's a call for recovery. Okay, so we get it. Our brains are overstimulated, they're tired, they're stressed out. It sounds pretty bleak, but it's really not a hopeless situation at all. So the real question is, how do we start to fight back? How do we build an environment where our brains can actually do what they're supposed to do?
Well, the solutions aren't about trying harder. They're about being smarter. They target the root causes we just talked about. This means not scrolling on your phone for 30 minutes right before you try to read a textbook. It means using shorter, focused bursts of work, and it really means designing your physical space to have fewer distractions. The whole goal is to start working with your brain's biology instead of constantly fighting against it.
So if you take one thing away from all this, let it be this. Studying feels harder today not because you're broken or less capable. It's harder because the rules of the entire environment have changed, but our brains are still trying to play by the old rulebook. So the question we should be asking isn't, why can't I focus? The real question is, how can I change my environment to give my amazing brain a fighting chance?